It's really good to see you all, new faces and familiar faces alike. We are convening here as our local school board members advisory council and have several new members either here with us tonight or who will be joining us in the future. So we're excited about that transition and glad that you all are here today in the cold and hope you all have a wonderful few days ahead of you with KSBA. We're going to get logged in here just so the folks online. We do have Ms. Jennifer Thompson and Brenda Rose online, just so you all are aware. Our agenda tonight is pretty relaxed in that we wanted to take some of the feedback that we had heard from members in the past and also recognizing that some of our recent audit at the department had mentioned specifically our advisory council structures. And so we realized that we wanted to make this group feel more owned by you all, not just taking agenda topics from you on a month-to-month basis, but also wanting to set some priorities with you, recognizing that Dr. Fletcher is here with us tonight and does an absolutely wonderful job making an effort to be with us each time. But there may be times when he's not, and we want to certainly advise him in other ways. And so we felt that setting some strategic priorities as a group tonight would help narrow our focus on things you might want to advise the commissioner on throughout the year that are important to you all as board members as you represent boards across the state and certainly students and communities. So aside from setting some of those priorities tonight, as I mentioned, we have Dr. Collins with us. He's going to dig a little bit more deeply into what we've talked about in the past with local accountability. I feel like we've talked about it as sort of a nebulous thing in the past and how it fits specifically into a larger framework. But tonight he's going to go a little bit deeper with you all in kind of a taste, if you will, of sessions that we took around the state recently to our local co-ops and help you all hopefully leave here feeling like you have a great understanding of local accountability and what that could mean for your counties as well. We'll go ahead and do some introductions as we do have familiar faces and new alike. Want to introduce ourselves with three things. If you'll introduce yourself by name, by district, and a celebration that you have to bring forward from your community. So what's something that has really sparked joy for you lately in your school district? And we'll start here.
I'm Felix Appoje from the Buchanan Independent School board member. We just we had this innovation hub. We've had it for a while, but we actually did not open it up until just 2 weeks ago, and it was a very good.
David Turner, Walton Vernon Independent. I guess I'll say two things real quick. One is our schools are blue on all the levels. So this is it was fantastic news for us. I know it's one of the things that everybody hopes to achieve. So that's been great. And then the other thing that I really love is we have a very small population in our alternative school, but we continue to have students graduate month after month from that program, which is fantastic.
Robbie Fletcher, Commissioner. As I look around the table, I've either visited or had connections with everybody in the room. Everything from the Great Shake. Yes. It was phenomenal in Clark County. I really enjoyed that. And it's a great program they have for their 5th through 8th grade. It's really core to the Innovation Hub in Paducah. That was great. Or All In for Ag, being in for All In for Ag, and then also local accountability. And as a matter of fact, I even talked to Matt Baker a little bit about the local accountability and profile learners. So as I look around the room, it's great to have those connections with everyone's districts. Let's see, my last district was Lawrence County. So I was a superintendent there for 10 years.
I'm David Webster. I'm from Simpson County. And we have this board come up with this idea of trying to show appreciation to our staff, not just the teachers, but all staff. So a few years back, we started giving like a $300 extra duty stipend. And for the last 3 years, we've been able to give every staff member, we've got 400 something staff members, $1,000 to reduce staff, extra duty every year in November, before Thanksgiving, so they can get their Christmas gifts out, play away. And they love it. And it just, you see tears, I mean, especially from the classified staff, they just overjoyed. And I'm just glad that we're doing that as a district.
Benita Murphy, Webster County. As the Commissioner said, we came to our Ag Day. That was a fantastic day. And then also we ended up this year finally getting our track together so we can have track and field and we can start hosting track meets. That was so important to a lot of our young men that were running cross country because they never had anywhere to really practice. So it's been a great thing for us.
Joanna Friels from Shelby County. We have started a career middle school program where they go around to the different occupations, and this is working really well with our middle school students. So we've got the right people in there to lead that. I think it's a big success.
I'm Dr. Rob Collins, originally from Greenham County, currently on the commissioner's team as a strategic data analyst. And my celebration is I have a new job as of Monday. Pretty good.
I'm Carl Geyser from Clark County. We've had a lot of good stuff going on last year. We opened up a new preschool, state-of-the-art, beautiful school. Able to get that off the ground, and it's already growing. We're adding more students for Christmas. And then we also was very blessed in our scores that every school we had went up in the results, and we're all green. Hope to be all blue soon, but we're all green with every school in the district. And most proud, I guess, would be we were the top 30% for our high school state. So.
I'm Jody Dillman. I'm the liaison for the group. I work for Sarah in the Division of Innovation. So you will be getting emails from me, the follow-up minutes from me, and anything that we need to get our meetings on time and on track will come from me. You can always reach out to me with any questions.
Most importantly, she's our personal baker. Those who've been around know there's high expectations because nobody makes a better pumpkin bread than me.
Job security.
And Sarah Snipes, for those of you who I've not yet met, I serve as our director in the Division of Innovation at the department. Going back a little bit in order here, I just want to remind you that on my computer over there, this session is recorded. The purpose of that is to archive those onto our KDE media portal. If you are online, thank you very much for having your camera on. Feel free to use your mic freely in the discussion and remain muted when not speaking to the group. And Jody does a wonderful job creating the minutes for our meetings. And so those can also be found not only in the emails that she sends you afterwards, but also on our local school board members advisory council webpage. As we mentioned, we're your liaisons from the department. And spoke briefly to this a few minutes ago, but wanted to go back over our agenda and see if you all approve. We'll start with roll call, other members and approval of past minutes. Our commissioner will do welcome and remarks. We will review this council and its purpose and charge and set those annual priorities with a strategic focus for the next year. Dr. Collins will speak to us about local accountability, and we will close with any open discussion, feedback, and next steps for our convening in February.
I'm going to go ahead with approval of minutes. I sent those out in an email to you. If you've had a chance to review them and can approve them, I will take a first approval and a second. And then I'm going to go ahead, just say present or here when I call your name. Felix Okoji.
Here.
Joanna Friels.
Here.
Carl Kaiser.
Here.
Benita Murphy.
Here.
Brenda Rose.
She's good.
Jennifer Thomas. Online.
Here.
David Turner
Here.
and David Webster.
Here.
Dr. Fletcher, I'm going to turn it over to you just to make any opening remarks, and if the group has any questions they'd like to address. Thank you so much for being here.
You okay if I sit here? Is it okay? First and foremost, I want to congratulate everyone. There was across the Commonwealth, our testing data was very positive. We had the highest percentages of proficiency and distinguished students that we've had since COVID. We've been on an increase. We had a little bit of a flat line in 22, 23 in some areas, but every single area, with the exception of writing, which writing stayed the same, but our percent proficient distinguished increased across the state. So we're very happy. Also moving into looking at your number of blue schools, our number of high schools almost doubled. I think it did over double the number of blue schools that we had. Our numbers of green, of our top tier schools of our green and blue did increase. And again, there was no changes in the scores with the exception of science. Science, there was a new test given, there was some level setting, we had to go through the process, but all other assessments stayed the same and the bars stayed the same. So whatever it took to get proficient didn't change, yet people were meeting that bar. So very thankful. Some things that, as far as some legislative priorities as we move into the session, first and foremost, it's going to be local accountability. And we had some great presentations across the state with all of our town hall meetings. And this was not an accountability law. I won't steal any of Dr. Collins' thunder here in a little bit, but this came from input from educators across the Commonwealth, also from parents, from students, from legislators, that this is what our proposal is for our new accountability model. And since Dr. Collins is going to talk to you about local accountability, I'll give you some pieces of the other part. There's essentially two parts. The first part is if you will, the formula on how CSI schools are listed. And a part of that formula includes, we're recommending an adaptive reading and math test. You know, each of you would either have either MAP, STAR, or already your districts already that do an adaptive. For example, if a student gets a question correct, they get a more difficult question until it pinpoints where they are. So what we're proposing to the legislature is for the state test to be adaptive. And for two reasons. One, we want to make sure that we're saying we're giving you data on whether or not students are proficient on grade level standards. But also, two, we want to be able to give from the state perspective, what is the grade level equivalency? Do we really feel like parents really connect better with, and we've done a good job across the state of educating parents what proficiency is. It's meeting the bar on grade levels for that, for third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. But how much more would it mean for a parent if you had a third grade student and you were able to tell a parent, you know what, they're reading on fifth grade reading, or they're reading 2 grade levels above, or 2 grade levels below, things of that nature. I think those are things that parents connect better with. And so one of the proposals is an adaptive reading and math test, would allow us to give grade level proficiency, also grade level equivalency. So what grade level? The second part, in talking to legislators that has a lot of headway, is moving from change. If you folks can sit down and explain change to me, I'd be very impressed. That's because sometimes I have to review it. And I've been a part of this, the change ever since it was implemented. I didn't have any part in writing it. That's something that legislators did. But it's such a convoluted system. Like, for example, if a school district in third, fourth, fifth grade reading drops 5 points on their stats. So if they had a 90 index, the next year they have an 85. Well, change says you basically double it and take another 5 off, so you've got another 80. So essentially, that doubles the amount that they're decreasing, and that's very high. Okay, but the change element is something that we're asking legislators to move from change to student growth. So where did you get the child? Where did you take them? For me, that's probably the best measure for school success. Don't get me wrong, we're able to celebrate those districts that are very high and stay at a high level. We need to celebrate that. But we also need to celebrate those districts that maybe they're getting kids that are coming in into their districts that are maybe they're coming in as a third grader, but they're on a kindergarten or first grade reading level. And if they can elevate those 2 grade levels in 1 year, that's impressive. We need to celebrate that. So we're asking the legislature to move from change to student growth. Again, the best way to describe that is, where did you get the child? Did you take it? Okay. The other parts that we feel that needs to be changed is the ELL, English Language Learner. Right now, if you have an English Language Learner student in your school system, they are fully within the accountability model in year 2. So what we're proposing is, with the new growth model, is the first year will be your baseline. The next year, their growth would be a part of your accountability. And then in the 3rd year, their growth and their status or their performance would be involved. So essentially, you have 3 years to onboard ELL students. And for example, we have pockets within our state, Bowling Green, Independent, and Warren County schools are reporting over 130 different languages spoken in their schools. Jefferson County is over 140. And some of you have some pockets like that, but in Lawrence County, I had 1 ELL student. 1. And Sarah, on 1 year, and there's been years we didn't have any. So, how fair is it to ask a student who comes into our country that cannot speak the language at all to take our assessments in year 1 and in year 2 be a part of it? So we're asking for that change in the ELL population. Other pieces that we're recommending is, and again, not to get too much into local accountability, is to have our social studies and writing to move over into the local accountability. We really believe that districts can do a better job of developing writing assessments than what we can at the state level. So we feel like we should have districts that, and I'm going to say this, and if anybody throws anything at me, I fully understand. But some districts feel like writing portfolios were an excellent way to see growth in students. So
They
if you
were.
want- if you-
They really were.
They really
I told you, it was
were.
great when all of this was going on. And the idea behind the portfolio was great. They started it in kindergarten and it passed on with you. And maybe when you got in 3rd or 4th grade, you thought, I remember when my dog was hit by a car. I want to rewrite that and make, that was a great
See
idea.
growth.
But then they put too much pressure on those students where they said, do we have to go on a field trip? I don't want to write about Thomas Jefferson or whoever, it got to that point, it was too much of a grade and too much of pressure. And I'm talking about elementary students, 4th grade. But the idea behind it was wonderful.
And that's what we want to do, is give districts the flexibility of how do you want to score writing? And how do you present that to your local community? We're not looking at testing it statewide. We're just looking at how can you do that from a local perspective? And how do you want it? Could it be that a district at the high school level makes editing mechanics tests? They can take our writing test. If they're not ready to develop their own, they can take ours. So that's another part of it too. Other pieces, we really feel like the legislature has made such an investment in career and technical education. And we feel like, I believe, as a former principal, that's one of the best indicators for high schools is how successful kids are on the SAT, or how successful they are on certifications, industry certifications, or maybe it could be internships or things of that nature as far as that transition or dual credit. So that transition readiness is a piece that we don't want to change. We want to stay. There's a lot of talk of if we can change graduation rate, we can make some changes, but for really and truly an FMD student, this is not fair. This is a federal rule, not ours. Like in graduation rate, if you have an FMD student and they get a alternate diploma or certificate of completion, technically their kind of drop out in graduation rate. That to me is just baffling, that if you have a student that has given everything you asked them to do in an FMD setting, in a special needs setting, why do they count it as a dropout, even though they've gotten a diploma? Now, so we're not making any change. We're looking at how much flexibility we have, but we can't go to that level. Say, okay, if you get a certificate of completion, that it counts as a diploma when you graduate. I understand the points, but that's something that we're looking at. Overall, we're keeping the graduation the same. We would look at how we can maybe redefine the alternate diploma. So that's some things that are going on with lawmakers. Other parts is the student survey on as far as safety and climate Currently, that is, I believe, 4% of the overall model. There's been some discussion within legislators, why not change that to chronic absenteeism instead of that student survey? We're promoting the student survey, although I did have one legislator make a good point. What is the best student voice you could have? Whether or not they're showing up in the classroom. That's really student voice, whether or not they're coming or not. So I understand that, and that makes sense. So you may hear that, what we're promoting is still the climate and safety survey, which was promoted by our full council, by our town hall. So we feel like that needs to be continue to be part of the model. It's already a part of the model, but to continue to be it. Now, if you look at that, all those pieces make up the formula to identify CSI, TSI, those comprehensive school improvement schools, the CSI, TSI, ATSI parts. We're also promoting science to be treated separately. In other words, we have to give a science exam. It has to be reported and it has to be uniform. And we're not, and you know, we did make some changes in standards, so the test changed a little bit. It's still a very extremely rigorous test. But we feel like it needs to be pulled out separately and reported separately so that we focus on science separately. It's not part of a different formula. So it was, even though we're still giving a science test and it's still uniform across the state, it wouldn't be a part of that CSI. Now, the other piece of the overall accountability model is we're asking our legislators to say local accountability, it's a shall instead of may. All districts can do local accountability. As a matter of fact, as we look across the room, several, as a matter of fact, Story County is one of our leaders when it comes to local accountability model. I think Clark County is getting into some of that work as far as local accountability. But local accountability allows the school system with working with their community members, parents, legislators. As a matter of fact, I'll use Rockcastle County as an example. One of the things that they have seven, I think it's 7 pillars that their community asked for. This is the data they want. For example, SROs. They want SROs in every single building, and that was one of the things that went into student well-being. Then they said, we can't afford it. Community members came together and said, how can we work together to make sure this happens? So it became a community problem. And it was part of their accountability model to say, we owe it to our community with their help to make sure there's an SRO. So yes, student achievement is absolutely important. Yes, it's absolutely important to have high math and reading scores. But also too, how are we allowing our districts to really work with their profile learners? So I am hearing from legislators that there's a potential, instead of saying that local accountability shall be a part of the overall model, then there may be offering a financial incentive for districts. And members of my team are just now hearing this for the first time. So in some of the conversations I had as of last Friday, there's a possibility, instead of saying shall, that they would offer some type of, if you're a district that is having local accountability model, there would be a financial incentive. I would like for that to be, okay, a $10,000 minimum, and then maybe X amount of dollars per student added on. If you have these pieces of the local accountability model, then you get that additional funding to help with that work. Now, to me, that handles right now, if you say local accountability shall be for every district, it's an unfunded mandate. But if you offer a financial incentive, we could grow that. And our work's still going to be in local accountability. We believe in it so much that it's makes such a difference in districts that we're going to focus on spreading local accountability throughout the state. We think it's so important to have local input. Going back to like Rockcastle County, Senator Storm, Representative Bray is on one of their 7 different committees for the local accountability. So they have their legislators. But again, asking your local communities, what data points do you want to see from us? What exactly is important to our community? I'll use one more example. Go to Logan County. Logan County has 4 pillars. One is student achievement. So they look at state testing data, but they also look at I think it's their MAC data and their community action data. The next was growth. So they're doing growth, even though it hasn't been a part of our model. They're already student growth. The next one is student readiness. How much are kids transitioning onto after Little League? And then the 4th part is student well-being. One of the indicators within their student well-being is what percentage of our kids are involved in extracurricular, co-curricular activities. One of the best indicators of student success once they leave our four walls of our schools is how involved are they outside of the classroom. So Logan County's community recognized that. This wasn't something that came from the superintendent or from teachers. This is something that came from their community. We want 100% of our kids involved in something. Whether it be a JROTC competition, whether it be a drama production, maybe an art show, or football, basketball. Things of that nature where they're actually active. And that's what their community asks for. They give them an indicator, and they actually have a growth plan of how can we make sure that every child has the opportunity to be a part of co-curricular extracurricular activity. So that's one of our biggest legislative priorities. It deals with local accountability. Others is clean up bills on Senate Bill 8181. Communication. Other things include we're always going to advocate for the increase in seat base, transportation, and also pre-K. We are a strong advocate for pre-K for all students. And then also too, our technology with ESSER money leaving. You folks are feeling this pain now. ESSER money's leaving. How do we keep up with those one-to-one initiatives and things of that nature? So we're advocating for technology. So I'll stop there and give you a lot. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Just very quickly, you've really just experienced what this group is intended to be, which is a chance for you all to both be informed and also to inform the department. And so, we serve as liaisons here to both, present information to you that interests you, that you find meaningful and relevant to your positions as board members around our state, but also hoping to exchange in that reciprocity of getting insight from you all, valuable insight to both lift up trends that you're seeing across all of your communities and needs that you have that are unique to the topics that we're interested in. So since we have a few new folks who have joined us, just wanted to review kind of the composition and the charge of this group. We will build back up to our 13 local school board members from around the state. Big thanks to KSBA and our regional cooperatives who have been helping us with those nominations and selections. The selection and sessions, as we mentioned, are facilitated by Jody and I. We come from the Division of Innovation, Office of Continuous Improvement and Support under Kelly Foster. And again, the primary role here is to advise KDE. How are those state level decisions and initiatives impacted by decisions? So much of the work that Dr. Fletcher just mentioned with local accountability is really meant to be that groundswell, grassroots take on how we hold ourselves accountable for students. And so I think that same concept is here. How do we give voice to your all's work and important perspective into the agency? Our meetings and term structure, we will meet twice per year, and we used to meet on a more frequent virtual basis, but based on the input of this group over time, felt that coinciding with these KSBA conferences have gotten our face-to-face, gotten us to sit down at tables together again, and have improved attendance overall. So thank you all for that. Members serve staggering one-year terms, with half the council serving an initial two-year term. And as was mentioned in some emails that you all received for selection, representatives must currently serve as local school board members, be an advocate for all students, which we know everyone in this room is, and not be a member of any other KDE advisory council. Just some expectations to hold each other accountable. We hope that you'll attend all scheduled meetings. Virtual is always an option for us if you can't make those in-person KSBA convenings. Arrive for each meeting on time. Fulfill any obligations for committed projects. We're going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment. And of course, serve as fair representatives for your community, and most importantly, Kentucky students, and treat peers and yourself with the respect and honor the contributions each person brings to this group, which we're so honored to be able to work with you all because this is just such a fantastic group to lead. So as I mentioned at the top of our time together, I want to shake things up a little bit and give us some time to think intentionally about kind of like a learning agenda. What is it that you all really want to pour energy and effort into learning, exploring, advising the department on? Historically, we have taken under Mr. Webster's leadership in the past, working with him to get agenda items that are of interest to you all. And then we on the back end work within KDE to find guest speakers who can come into that space, much like Dr. Collins is today, to inform you of important topics. But we want to make sure that you all guide those conversations much more intentionally and that we have this common thread throughout the year of our work together. So I'm going to ask us to set those priorities together. And given that we meet twice per year, we're going to do that by kind of setting a top 5. I'm going to ask Jody to give everybody some Post-it notes there. These priority areas, as I mentioned, will guide our discussions, our presentations, our topics, and the commissioner's consultation throughout the year. Really setting overall goals for this particular section of our agenda, wanting to surface what matters most to you as an individual, but collectively as school board members across our state. We hope this helps build ownership, and these priorities then become the lens for advising our commissioner. And hope that you'll take ownership of the areas that you have expertise or connection in. If there is a topic and you have relevance and connection to someone who could speak to this group about that topic, we would certainly want to tap into you as well in being able to surface some information, go out and learn, and come back to this group and inform your peers here as well. Establish a shared sense of direction for this annual through line and create some clarity around our priorities together. So wanting to give you all time, I don't know if you're like me, I have 3 boys and a full-time job and time to sit and think by myself. Might happen a couple times a year. So this will be one of those times. Jody's just given you sticky notes, and if you're online, feel free to do this in the chat. But just want to give you a moment to think about 5 topics. What are the top issues, challenges, or opportunities that you believe local school board advisory council should focus on this year? 5 issues. And I say issues, that doesn't have to be negative, but 5 topics that continually come up for you locally in significance. And if you will, put those each on a different sticky note.
I think it's important here to think about, there may be some things that are going on in your district that you think should be scaled to the rest of the state. And maybe there's some incentives or some type of programs within your own community that you feel like could be beneficial outside your county or city lines. Or it could be, something that you feel like maybe that we haven't really addressed, that needs to be addressed, or maybe there's an initiative, whether local accountability, whatever, that you've seen a lot of information on, but you'd just like to hear more about it. So this is a wide range. It's up to you, and we want to really try to guide this work in things, again, that can come back to me and to also to our board to say, okay, what do we want to do moving forward based on this information? So.
No wrong answers.
No wrong answers. Thank you.
No, 5 minutes is not quite long enough to ask you all of the burdens that weigh on your shoulders as board members. As folks wrap up, some final thoughts there. Aim for 5. If you don't quite have 5, you'll get to talk and flesh out some of those ideas. We've got a great number here tonight to do this in groups of 2. And so we'll pair up that way. What I want you to think about in this next portion is to cluster your ideas, share those with each other, and kind of start to cluster them into themes, if there are any that are apparent. So start to think about ones that have similarities and ask yourselves, what are the strongest 2 or 3 that we're seeing across our context? I think this is really powerful because not only have you gotten to reflect and think about your own personal community, but it's probably also nice to know that you're not on an island in some of the ways, some of the things that are priorities to you. So think about the top 2 or 3 strongest and just some guiding questions to think through. What themes are showing up repeatedly across our notes? What feels especially urgent to more than just my community? And what would truly benefit from the commissioner's attention and feedback from this council? And I say commissioner, also recognizing our board, the agency as a whole. So if we can pair off, I think pretty naturally, the two of you, and just moving over here, Joanna, if you don't mind. And then online, Brenda and Jennifer. Jennifer, are you in a space to speak? We were just going to let the 2 of you. Okay, we're just going to let you and Brenda share together, if that's all right, since you're both here online.
Okay, thank you.
And Brenda, I know I muted you at the beginning. Do you know how to unmute? There you go.
Got it. I put my ideas in the chat.
Like if they want to go with the person to the church or how they all those structures cannot they basically have to stop. It's not explained. That's exactly right. But the legislators pass it. That's one of the things we can handle. And then I think the non-members, the students. I like the ideas you have. What you make that one, David.
Right now, it's pretty big.
We have totally
discussed this. I've written out some police. Pretty active. Some of the others.
I don't, you know.
How many different leaders?
They won't show up at the meetings.
I don't think the things that I see is, and that's a lot of this comes from career also, is I want to practice pushing as hard as, you know, so career that I can get to knowledge.
Yeah. And I think that
It's getting there. It's getting.
I know it is our campus. It's actually, we have an education committee that I'm on, we met today, we have activities.
Yes, I'll see.
Yes, yeah. And,
Yeah, there's another thing I still think we're missing. Just scholar support. As part of those, I had a kid, he's got a kid, that doesn't necessarily know what they would do. But they still need to know how to make a budget.
Yeah.
It's right there. You need to think about the bike scale. There's skills that you need to get lost.
we talked about that today. It's really funny to talk about that.
Yeah.
About resumes they're working on.
Well, the amazing shape thing we need to is like, so
That phase two.
Fifth through eighth grade, you need to their ideas and it's focused on this. And the amazing shape, we was talking about how they shake, how you look at you in the eye. And then we go to East Kentucky Power, and East Kentucky Power, they go around and talk to them. Then I was just on the last thing, we'll get what you have. I think there's a bunch of things for, at the local restaurant, to help them. And you said, and they've got to be talking to you. So you can really take it, you know, with one. And what, so that's one of the things. And I've been said, I think it's all credit. It's talked about more than everybody. From the standpoint, even if they get in career, that's possibly increase let's listen, because I say something for somebody you don't know. From that.
I don't feel passionate.
Thank you. They don't get questions. They don't get these things. Okay, we got CCTC that is phenomenal. I've got good friends and his daughter graduated at high school with that 2-year degree. So we're talking about BCTC. They graded us. So she got on in that. I saved $70,000.
I think it's.
And also, I think we're doing good from, but here's my other communicate. People have so much. So they get the social media, we're looking on Facebook. This is going to be based on website. So you see, but we need to have that. So math. So I suppose just keep us here. What's starting to all that is that parents going to get their government and they're tired of feelings. But again, they're getting trying that. And that is so now it's sort of like the guy. Because it's not just. Yeah, I don't know what we do there. We do events where you kids in it if you get them in.
Right.
Especially at elementary level, you're talking people coming into what's the reality.
Get back to this moral release thing.
Oh, good.
I think that just legislators had something like that. There has to be more legislation that have school rules and what they're doing. That's, I think that's the state side. We had it. Who's supposed to be. I think that's conflict.
I've got ideas. I said, don't. You may not make it Thanksgiving. I don't talk to Lee or anybody.
Now, we are Senator. He felt.
I was like, look, I'm just glad we get to keep up that. Because he has a world. He's with us.
And he's, I think, been in the city, but he is to,
Well, I don't.
the beautiful city.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
I know how you feel.
I'm excited to see.
She's not bitter at all.
She'll take one.
You'll take it.
Asked her in about 2 years. Yeah. And they shot me. She's not too changed, you know, we gotta watch out for this.
We dealt with some of that this year. When we ended up lowering, we were able to lower our rate.
Matter of fact, but my next sister and her family got based.
Yeah,
So I'm still there. I'm actually.
and some action from the BDA.
It's got to get back at least once every 2 weeks.
That's
to go
the
check
problem.
things.
We evaluate conflicts, they naturally go up.
This puts me as.
It's not saying that. Kentucky motor upset because the taxes were higher, but the rate didn't change. We're the.
You kept the same, right?
Yeah. And but.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I speak.
Just before some final thoughts in your peers here, Dr. Fletcher did want to make note of something.
Sorry, the superintendent FaceTiming me, which doesn't happen. So one of the things that this are so important, and we take them very seriously. I'll give you an example. Our associate commissioners at the department came up with 27 different additional budget requests of the governor and of the budget process. And so when we have that type of information, I also took that to CASBO. And for those of you who know what CASBO, your finance officer probably went to CASBO last week. I was there presenting. And so what I did was I gave all 27 of those additional budget requests. For example, an increase in base SEEK, increase in transportation, pre-K for all. There's 27 different budget requests. And I gave them to the finance officers and put them in groups and asked them to rank those budget requests. The top four were exactly the top four that our board, Kentucky Board of Education, in order, they ranked them the same way. So that shows how lockstep that our board is with school districts and what the priorities are. So we take that information and that we're able to go talk to legislators. Hey, look, we believe that this is one of the top 4 priorities, not only for our board, but it's also the priorities of our schools. And we've been able to show that over time that we're trying to work together as closely as possible. So that's why it's so important in activities like this that, even if there's something, maybe there's a blind side that we're not seeing. So it's good for us to first of all, put it on our radar, what type of research we have. Then also too, to show that we're aligning in what our priorities are. So again, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that, but I just want to give you an example of how we try our best to take what we get from our advisory councils or people in the field and not only count that as our priorities, but also make sure that we're talking with legislators saying, look, we're aligned on this. Now, we may disagree on this, that's okay. But it means a lot to our legislators when we say, we've talked to superintendents, we've talked to board members, and these are things that we agree on. And how do we move forward with legislation? So again, appreciate your work on this.
They couldn't wait to jump right back in. So I'm going to hear it. Do you actually minutes or do we feel good about some themes? I'm going to put Jody on the spot here just for a moment for a housekeeping item. We're going to share some of these out loud for some whole group synthesis. And I'm going to ask Jody if she can write those down as they come to the full group. Want to make a note here, and I'll give you a few seconds to do this before we share. We want to ensure that these are at a guiding priority level, right? We don't necessarily need to be offering a solution here if it's a challenge. And some examples here is it is completely fine to offer up as a theme supporting teacher workforce and well-being. It is completely fine to say something like strengthening local governance and community voice. Okay, it can be that broad, or if you have a more specific theme, that's fine. But think of it as a guiding priority for this group. And again, some considerations just to think through. If we had the commissioner's ear, if we had the department, the state board's ear for 1 hour, what might be a topic we want to address? And try to filter out those nice to discuss items with those high value statewide priorities, as Dr. Fletcher just mentioned. Okay, so I'm going to take just a minute if you need to make any tweaks to your themes as partners, and then we will share out what each group got, and Jody will make note of those. So give you just about 60 seconds to check your group against these things.
Forward transparency. I don't always think clear years of transparency.
Amen. Oh, no, they're not.
No, it's not doing it again.
I think I've seen the teams.
Ours is very. Ours is.
If you really like your superintendent, I'll share with you. I had him in class.
He told me.
If you don't like it, don't.
Transparent.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
He told me that I would like. He told me
Well, that's very
fantastic.
I had superintendents that wasn't, and I had superintendents that was.
It makes sense.
A lot of difference.
So much.
Mhm.
Actually, one of the reasons I ran. Because he's doing that good a job.
Well, you can see his love for Keith. It is.
And he's from Graham County, I'm from Carter County originally, so. Yeah.
Major Kentucky folks are watching.
Well, I said, all the things come out of the east.
All right, we will start over here this time. Just share out for us your top themes.
We didn't get a top thing, we just got a bunch of things.
Well, so if you had to share out, say your top 2 or 3, where did most of your conversation tend to gravitate?
One of the things we talked a little bit about, and I think is important, is the communication between schools and your community, or I think we've overdone it. And that sounds crazy. I think we put stuff on Facebook, we put stuff on Twitter, we put stuff on the website to go to this, go to that. And it's almost become, I get a lot of parents and people telling me, I'm sick of seeing stuff from the school. I'm getting 15 to 20 messages a day and all of it, because they're involved in all those things. Don't get me wrong, some of that's on them. But you know, how do you ever pull all that together to say, okay, we're still communicating good, but we're not overwhelming people?
One of the things too we talked about, when legislators, when they pass things, they need to give a better explanation to the things that they pass. For example, is this moral release hour, which they passed last year. We don't know how to do, we don't have the right guidelines, you know, the way it's interpreted. We let them go out an hour for moral instruction, or I don't even know how this is gonna work. But in the classroom, they can't continue, the teacher can't continue with students with whatever they were working on until these students return. Or that's the way we're interpreting it.
Mhm.
So some of the things that they pass, we're clueless, and we want to do what they pass, even if some of them does sound a little wacko, but.
You know, even for us, I mean, even for us at the department, you know, we put out legislative guidance that, and we have to do some broad interpretation too, you know.
Right, it's,
And there's things that we don't agree with, but still yet, we're trying to give districts the best. As a matter of fact, if you go to our website, we have legislative, every bill that's passed, that's education related, we put legislative guidance on. And honestly, we've had to put out, sometimes come back and put out 2.0 versions, because the first version would be like, okay, we need to be a little more specific for districts here. When we get feedback from districts and say, okay, what exactly does that mean? But you're getting our interpretation. So, but I agree with you. I think there's, for example, with moral instruction, I was not in favor of that. I think that parents should be involved with how their kids, if they want to look at. Again, I'm a Christian. I don't hide from that. As a matter of fact, I'm very, very thankful for that. But I think that's something that's left up to parents on how you want to instruct your kids. And so if you look across our state, we've had several, I'll say, organizations that try to step in and provide. And it's caused a lot of chaos in some districts on how, you know, do you allow this group to pull them in or the others? And, you know, we want to give everybody the opportunity. We want to make sure that we're following the law. So I understand exactly. We try our best to provide guidance, but then again, it's like lots up to interpretation. It's a great point.
Joanna, my understanding, if we were to kind of frame that as a priority statement, something around clarity and legislative guidance. Am I here? Is that right? Thank you.
right. Even the phone situation that they passed, you know, my niece in Owensboro, she is going to argue that in front of the legislators about, you know, her best friend's mother is a teacher, but she can't call it's confusing, that whole thing. I think it's a safety issue, you know.
Well, and I think that one of the things I've told teachers is said, you gotta be careful with your counter. Because it sounds like we want to communicate with your kid without your knowing, without your permission. That's not the intent. That's not what was, that should not be the counter argument. It's supposed to be to protect kids' safety wise. But on the other hand, what if you're a teacher that has a side business and you employ students that should be in the classroom, but students that are out in the district, and you employ them? Do you use the school approved communication for your business? So
It's
again,
confusing.
it is confusing.
So Jody's made note of that. One more big topic, or would you like to pass to the next group?
No, the other thing I said, I liked what you said with the steps with the non-speaking English students. I like that because I feel like that's why we've got 25% Hispanics in Shelby County. And I think that's a reason for our test scores, you know, and it's not fair to those students that are coming in and they have no clue, you know. They need to have time to learn the language and to test out. So we need more money spent on that.
This next group?
I was talking about, explain more about the FMD issues that we have in our schools. You know, the fact that a lot of people don't understand what is the different guidelines between being an FMD student and not. And the ages, and, you know, just the whole issues around FMD. You know, because a lot of people don't understand, you know, and it's hard to try to explain to them because they already have a mindset on, you know, do something about, they don't, you know, nobody understands what the FMD is set for. So they just think they're just wasting money with those kids. And then after we get out of school, they don't have any kind of skill sets, you know, those that are able to go out and work. That would want to.
And to tie into that, we mentioned that just sped students in general. But right now we have an issue with parents thinking that their kids are in danger because of the sped students. And they're not, but that's the whole atmosphere in school, especially in our middle school right now. And I don't know if there's any way to get guidance on how to educate the public that they're not, they're not in trouble. They're not going to be any issues with experienced students and students, any of them like that. But I think it is a problem, not just not, but for sure all students. And we need to, I think we need to address that. One was the allocations, and we talked about in the unfunded mandates, but one that to time in the community that it's been an issue with us for a long time. We've discussed this a lot, is misunderstanding between the community on site-based counseling from school boards. What does site-based counseling do? How come you can't do this? And, you know, we want to do this, we can't go to site-based counseling does this. And how do you educate this community? This is not a part of the school board called site-based counseling. And I think the issue is we give them the allocations, we give them their findings, but we don't tell them how to spend it. And the public doesn't understand it. You give it to them, you're the one that should be telling them to do it. Now, I think the school board should have a little freedom in where the money is spent, because I've been on board long enough to watch a lot of stuff, financial reports of $65,000 program, $135,000 program, $185,000 program, 1 year it's gone. Where'd that money go? It's wasted. And we didn't have anything to say about it. And I think that's one thing that needs some kind of addressing from the.
It's funny that you mentioned that because that came up in our board meeting, not necessarily, it's KRS 160.345 is the site-based counseling statute. And really to review that is to say, are we utilizing that statute in a way that's intended? You know, how much freedom should site-based counseling have versus, you know, where do we step in as a board? Or even should we be looking more about advocacy from the Southwest Council? Or, of course, if you've got CSI school, then that group loses their capacity and you have a turnover. So that's been mentioned a little bit, especially our board meetings. I haven't heard a lot from legislators, but the Kentucky Board of Education has talked about how do we revisit that statute in particular to see if it's really meeting what's intended to do. So that's a good point.
If the board can have a little oversight, especially on the large purchase like that, and let them come to the board and say, we want to purchase this program. This is what we're expecting out of it. And there has been some movements in our district where it started out in one school, it's going to all the schools now, which was good. Someone started out in one school, last year it's gone. And that's, to me, it's a waste of funds for the school district. I wish there was someone from the school board and Southwest Council to deal with that kind of.
And it's a problem too, if you don't have the same, especially elementary, if you don't have the same program at the same school, I mean, at all the schools, and you have students, and usually this is an old teacher term, gray area students, and they move at the end of the month. You're used to them moving and going to another school, and then they go to another school and there's another program being introduced. And so they've had this program and this program, and maybe the next month when rent's due, they're moved somewhere else. And elementary, you see that a lot, and it's a problem. I said I wanted to live to see the basal readers come back, and I think they're almost here. We're using a series that's almost the basal. I've still got my basal readers when I taught because I wouldn't let them throw them away. But if you had the same program, and that's where site-based council has failed, I think, is they want high test scores and they put a Band-Aid on it for a year. They don't leave it long enough to see if it's going to work, and then they go to something else and something else. But I think we're in Shelby County now. We're on the same page at least at all the elementary schools.
Now, your superintendent has a lot more authority than that. Used to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see how, I think that statute was passed maybe 4 years ago. About 4 years ago. So that's something to research into that. And probably some things that you can do even with setting guidelines for high quality instructional materials. Again, there are some leeway there within, but as far as textbooks and things of that nature, that has to be.
So hearing your thoughts there, if I could just wordsmith a little bit into a theme, I'm hearing both of you kind of say this concept around building understanding and supports for special education students. And then I'm also hearing you, almost this one here, talk about strengthening local governance and maybe alignment. Strengthening local governance and alignment. This group.
I think where Felix and I had the most overlaps is on a topic that I've called inequality gaps. So we see gaps in racial and language within a school. You have that as a barrier. At some schools, it's a huge barrier. At other schools, not so much. Economic impacts, and one of the key call outs from that economic impact is food insecurity. That's a big issue, and we have, in my district, we're very fortunate that we have a small population that applies to, but we try to get everyone to enroll and fill out the forms for free or reduced lunch, and we can't even get people who are qualified to fill those forms out. I don't know if there's a better solution to automatically default people into that, but that's a real struggle, and I know that that's statewide. The other inequality gap we have is on vocational opportunities. Some schools have massive programs, other schools, it's like a desert, they don't have anything. And then the last one was teacher salaries. You can have school districts side by side where the salaries are so much higher that you just have a constant flow into the school. So those are the inequality gaps.
It's releasing some teachers to neighboring states too.
I think it's next year that Tennessee will have a minimum teacher salary of $50,000. And And as a matter of fact, I think we have someone who is in Quigley County, is there a member that's from?
Formerly.
Formerly, okay, well, and the reason why I bring up Quigley County is they had a young lady that, she was Miss Quigley County, is my understanding. I don't know, or I just talked with the superintendent. Says she finished her degree in 3.5 years, came back at Christmas. There wasn't a job opening in the district at the time, so she went to work in Tennessee. And so when the job came open and she wanted to come home. Well, she interviewed, got offered the job. She was like, homecoming queen, everything when she was there. She was Miss Whitley County. She was wanting to be home. But when she started signing the contract, she said, I can't sign this. This is $5,000-7,000 less than what I'm making. I have student debt. I want to come home, but I can't do that. And, that's with those increase in salaries across the board is something different. Now, I tell you something that's very interesting that I would love to hear your view. Do you believe that when you talk about additional funding, is it best to put it in seat base? Or is it best to say this is the, do you folks know there is a minimum teacher salary on the books, right? It's only like 24,000 or something like that, which no one's close to that. But would it be best to put that money straight into to say every district has to have this minimum teacher salary?
If it was funded.
So, let's say that we were asked, and as a superintendent one year, we were asked, would you rather see money being added into the seat base? Or would you rather say, okay, we're going to give you X amount to make sure it goes directly to teacher classified certified salaries? Because you're going to have those same type of issues with bus drivers, things of that nature too. So it's something, you don't have to answer that. That's something to think about. Those kind of discussions come up a lot.
Any others?
The other ones we had was, one of the thoughts was, what can we do to really improve the math learning of students throughout the state? So what we talked about was you have the accelerated reader program that's fantastic, and schools have accelerated reader nights, and they almost gamified this throughout the school year. And all these kids in elementary school are just focused on this. But if we could have a program that's like that for math or STEM, I think that would be fantastic. And then the last one I had was just talking about local accountability. I love the local accountability programs, but it seems like there must be 100 different ways to do this. And I think some type of broad guidance on this is what local accountability that's effective really looks like. And I think that would be good to, people still can make it their own, but if you said these are the 4 or 5 pillars that we think are really effective when done well, I think that would be good.
So I'm hearing inequity gaps, specifically the ones that you've mentioned, and then I'm thinking numeracy supports and initiatives, perhaps. And then, yes, so broad guidance on effective.
Yeah, what does
I hear effective coming out. Yeah. Okay, great. Brenda or Jennifer, are you all able to speak to yours?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to resonate what the group just prior said about the inequality gaps. We are, especially in Graves County, seeing a tremendous number of students want to get into our vocational programs, and we're actually having to turn students away. We share that program with Mayfield City Schools or Independent and Carlisle County, which is one of our river counties, and we have a large number of students that want into those, and we're having to turn students away because we simply don't have the capacity. And we have applied for the grant money, and we've been denied. And it's really disheartening when you learn that schools that were awarded grant money, they use it to improve the facade or the front of their building of their vocational school when we don't even have classroom capacity. So there is a major disparity among, depending on where you're from and what district you're in, as opportunities for students to have career training. So that was one. The other is if we approve pre-K, where are we going to put those students? In our school district, it is going to cause a major issue with where are we going to put pre-K full-time? So how are we going to address that? I love pre-K. I love that we're entertaining that, but where are we going to put them is my question. And how are we going to address that issue? I definitely agree with the salary start at 50,000. And to answer your question, I definitely think the money should be earmarked for salaries because you're leaving it at the discretion of school boards and districts to determine, salaries or what they're going to do with their SEEK money. So if you don't earmark that for salaries, then there is a very high potential that it won't go for salaries for teachers. And when you talk about Tennessee, remember, they don't have income tax either. So they're actually taking home a lot more money than our teachers, and we're losing a lot of teachers to Tennessee, especially near river southern counties. And those counties are struggling already to pay their teachers. So they're just simply going right across the border to work and making a lot more money.
And I would like to comment too on the, we were just talking about Whitley County. I am Brenda Rose from Whitley County, and we have lost numerous teachers who have gone to Tennessee because we're right there on the line, and they make much more money in Tennessee, and they can't come and work with us. But and we also have a trouble retaining teachers. If they get a job first and here in Whitley County and then are offered a job in Tennessee, they will leave us and go there. So that's a problem that we have.
So if I could just recap with you all, I'm hearing you say, Jennifer, access to student opportunity, particularly career education. I also heard you talk about, both of you speak to teacher recruitment and retention. Do you all as a group feel the focus is more so financially, or do you want to think about that more holistically? I think that's fair either way.
I think it's both, but I'll also expand on that a little bit. I think schools are really struggling with math and science teachers. There needs to be some sort of incentive for specialized teaching areas. I don't know, our high schools especially, we're really suffering in those areas. Chemistry, biology teachers, advanced math placement teachers. It's a real struggle. And as teachers are retiring and leaving, we're not replacing them. And especially in rural Kentucky, I mean, that's tough. And if we don't address those issues, I mean, we're barely scraping by trying to find those. And we're in a really good area. We have Murray State, but we're all fighting for those new teachers. And, the pay can be a little bit more across the county line. They're going to go, of course, they're going to go where the money is. So it's a really big problem. And especially when a lot of the market here is nursing majors, radiology techs, a lot of healthcare providers. So science is very important in our schools. And we have a lot of plants, chemistry, chemical plants and things like that. So with that becoming a big disparity, it's a real issue and a concern.
Thank you for sharing that. The last thing that I did hear you mention there was pre-K, almost the logistics. We're supportive of it. What are the logistics and how can we be successful in supporting a transition of that size?
And two things that come to mind on the pre-K for all committee. One of the suggestions, part of that work is to have that as a phase. And the reason for that, one, teachers, workforce, transportation, facilities. Well, the only way that it would work in the near future, in the next 4 to 5 years, there's going to have to be money there for districts to be able to do partnerships with either churches or partnerships with other businesses, but probably more likely a lot with churches, so you have space. As a matter of fact, in Lawrence County, we had a partnership with a local church to have the space to do preschool. So that worked out really well for us. So, districts, there's many districts, they just don't have the capacity, the facilities, first of all, and then also the teachers, so really good understanding. I agree wholeheartedly with what people were saying about teaching and the salaries, but I will say there's some things that we're trying, that EPSB, the Education Professional Standards Board, there is a committee that's looking at certifications for science teachers. For example, now, if you go through, if you're a biology teacher, you're a biology major, you finish, you go out and can teach biology. So talking with the group is is there an appetite, especially with our providers, our education preparatory providers, of having a science area of concentration? So to say, like, for example, a teacher can take 4 classes in life science, physical science, and maybe 4 classes in let's see, space science, and then essentially with all those areas, and when they come out, they could be certified to teach biology, chemistry, and physics. And not, for example, I'm a physics minor. I'm not qualified. I am certified to teach physics. I'm not certified to teach chemistry, nor would you want me to teach your chemistry classes. But I'm also a math major too, so I can do those things. But as far as science, it's a more unique because it's a specialized. So trying to broaden that out so that we have it. Now, the other thing, as far as salaries, there will be a bill that's going to be introduced that really encourages districts to have an educator pathway so that it's possible for students to go through, if they want to be a teacher, to maybe start out in the sophomore, junior year of high school and then finish at a four-year institution and have 0 tuition at a public university. So there's some work that we're trying to do to get scholarships for those going into the educator pathway. Now, of course, legislators are going to say, well, they need to come back to Kentucky and teach. I get that. I understand that. Although there's not any type of ties when you talk about your career technical pathways, but I can understand that when we talk about teachers. So again, fully will promote from the department standpoint increase in salaries for our educators. We will promote it, but also know that we're trying to look at other ways to sweeten the deal or to promote our legislators. Some great input.
So I'm going to ask Jody just to read this full list back to us and want to give Dr. Collins the floor to talk about local accountability. What I'll do in the meantime is kind of separate these out in a space. And then just on our way out later, we'll make sure that we kind of vote by sticky note, if you will, and kind of place your top 3 of this list. So be thinking of that as she lists these out. If I had to gravitate towards 3 of these, which would I gravitate towards? And we'll just kind of do that by majority and narrow it down to 5. From there, in our following meetings and likely in between, we'll probably have some communication to you to start to surface a learning agenda. So just as the commissioner's done, like, what are some questions you really want to dig into? You all mentioned some very specific items. And so one to kind of surface that, how do we kind of put a note on some of the questions that you have? And then what I appreciate about this as well is this helps the department have very specific questions to come to you all with to get insight on these issues that you care about. So Jody's going to read these really quickly. We won't do anything with it, but think about fluid.
I have communication between schools and families, legislative updates, including detailed information and clarity, a focus on building supports for special ed in the programs and definite guidelines, site-based versus school board obligations, inequality gaps, which also includes teacher salaries, math improvement across the state, so those numeracy supports, local accountability as far as what is effective local accountability, what does that look like? Pre-K logistics for placement of those programs, career education and opportunities, and then teacher recruitment and retention.
I will turn it over to Dr. Collins, and we mentioned next steps, and we'll have a chance to vote on those after his piece.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you folks for being here and sticking with me. I know no one's their best self at 6:30 on a Thursday. But I've taken this presentation. It's usually around 3 hours or so, and it's very interactive. Given the time that we have together, will be a bit summary, but still we'll dig into what local accountability is, why it's impactful, and how it might be useful in your particular context. So this does come on the heels of the local accountability design guide and toolkit that our team, along with folks from the University of Kentucky and from the OVEC Educational Cooperative, that put together. Essentially, it's a guide that walks through 6 critical actions to make high quality local accountability happen in your district. This guide is ready and available for you folks to have, and we'll make sure it's emailed to you after this meeting.
It's on our website.
And it's also on the website. So really quickly, you notice you have an Uno card at your table. I'm trying to see how much time I have left. Yeah, we'll do it. I want you to take a moment to consider organizations outside of education, and we're going to think about what we consider quality for those organizations. What counts as success for that particular organization? So go ahead and flip your Uno card over. Whatever number you got corresponds to the organization you'll be speaking about with your partner. So if you got 1, you'll talk about hospitals. 2, you'll speak about grocery stores. 3, you'll talk about restaurants, and 4, you'll talk about hotels.
Anybody get skip cards?
Yeah, if you got a wild card, you get to take your pick. So at any rate, I'll give you folks about 2 minutes, and if you want to group up again and just pick whichever card feels like the right card tonight. We'll give you 2 minutes. Think of the things that you would say that counts as a successful quality indicator for this particular business. So I guess we can all talk about hospitals, even though I know we picked different organizations. So what are some of the measures of quality for a hospital? How do you know that a hospital is a good hospital?
I mean, the quality.
Word of mouth, certainly.
The,
Outcomes.
Outcomes. There's a very large outcome that we tend to associate with hospitals. Mortality rate is a big one, right? That definitely tells you about the quality of that hospital. But I do want to say there's also context that's important, right? A general hospital is going to have a different mortality rate than, say, a hospital specializing in oncology, right? So it's certainly a number measure, but there's context behind it. Other measures of quality, really, they kind of last across different organizations. So you folks, did you have different measures of quality for your organization?
We had hotels, so
Sure.
ours was, I think, like right up is reviews, like you want to know what have other people who think they thought about that place.
Absolutely.
The location, is it convenient to where you want to be or not? Affordability,
Affordability, absolutely.
like cleanliness, which is also important for a hospital.
Cleanliness kind of persists across all organizations, doesn't it?
Well, even in a restaurant, right? I mean, what's the score, right? Like the health score. Mhm.
Right.
All 4 of these are service related business.
Mhm.
It's the service that you're looking at, not just the service of what they're doing, but how each employee treats you.
Absolutely.
You walk into the first floor and the person, how you doing today? Or walk into a hotel and get really nice one at the hospital, and then the person then talk to you and talk to you at all. The service that you give is going to determine that, what you said about this business, no matter what kind of business.
And all those lines, your secretary will make a break.
So across all of these organizations, the service is a factor, right? The quality of the service, the friendliness of the service. One thing I do note that typically when we talk about these types of organizations, there's a really broad range of metrics that we bring to the table when we consider. And there's a lot of context that we give, right? So Sarah mentioned the score. For some businesses like a McDonald's, I want a 100. Maybe I'll go to a 99 on that score. But some local restaurants that I know, I'll probably go in the 80s, maybe the 70s if it's got really good word of mouth, right? So it's context dependent. The point here being that the quality of that particular system or that particular organization is really subject to a broader range of metrics than we often give to schools. We'll kind of spoil the surprise, right? When we think about metrics that schools are beholden to, quite the largest metric is anyone? Test scores, right? We've already mentioned tonight the blues, the greens, the yellows, orange, and red, right? So thinking through local accountability, how can we expand the range of what we consider equality in our schools and tell that story more than just having, a number at the top of your website or a color. So the way I like to think of it is thinking of a puddle versus a lake. So the way that we currently measure accountability for schools feels a lot like measuring the depth of a puddle after the biggest rainstorm of the year. You get a lot of data in a very succinct period of time, right? Now, this is important data. It's literacy, it's numeracy, it's grad rate, it's attendance. But it's typically that one period of time that really defines that particular school or district. I think of local accountability as much more a lake, a variable length and depth, right? Giving districts the opportunity to really focus on things that are of value to their community. The example I've given across the 8 co-ops that we've done this training in is like service learning. Perhaps your school is really invested in the idea that every student gets the opportunity for a service learning experience. That could be a big part that you report on to your community, that we're focused on service learning and the quality of that experience for our schools. It could be you're at a traditionally high-performing school and AP scores really matter to you, that students take the AP test and after that they earn their college credit, and that might be something to report on. The point is that each community gets to pick what their values are with input from the community and really honor that in the system. So what is local accountability? How do we define it? So we think of local accountability as an expansion in who determines what we measure. So typically traditional accountability systems, they're defined through state and federal legislation. There are certain things that we're beholden to that aren't changing. But local accountability invites communities to come in and really broaden that spectrum. What do we care about as a community? And how is that different in Clark County than it is in Paducah? It's an expansion in what we measure. So again, traditional accountability focuses on those achievement measures and those other indicators like grad rate. Local accountability expands what counts as success. Perhaps it is every single student gets a really rich internship experience. That can count as success as well. It's an expansion in how we measure. So it's not just that traditional assessment system, like a test that's given across a week of school, but we're looking at larger systems of testing that are more, or not testing, excuse me, of assessment that are richer, like performance assessments. And then this is the big one for local accountability. It's the idea that we change how we share and act on what it is that we measure. So it's an idea that accountability actually is a fluid process that's ongoing, that we share with our communities often, we hear from our communities often, and there's a reciprocal relationship there. So what is not? It is not a compliance checklist. There's no one list that we could give you and say, if you did these things, you would be doing right by your community in terms of local accountability, because each value is different. I know that where I'm from in Greenup County is not the same as Jefferson County, and it should not be the same. It's not a dashboard without dialogue. You've likely seen some of the dashboards that our districts have developed to tell the story of their district in a different way. Without the dialogue, that's not an effective measure, right? So there has to be that system of reciprocity where we're actually talking with our community with this dashboard. It's not just a rebranded school report card that has, a different logo on it. And it's not only for innovative districts. You don't have to be a district that has a chief innovation officer to do local accountability. It's for districts that have a community that's willing to engage. So our case for change is that traditional systems have failed to earn trust. I think after COVID, that couldn't be more clear. It lifts up strengths and not just deficits. So it's focused really on what makes each district, each community unique. And it fuels that continuous improvement by inviting the community in. There's a lovely video commissioned by the Cool Council. We do not have time for said video. but it's really good, I promise.
You'll have access to it.
Yeah. So when we think about the steps of local accountability, there are 6 steps. Really, the first step is instruction focus and the student experience focus. And those last 3 steps are district system-wide moves. So you start by defining success for students. You design vibrant learning experiences and really dig into what it means to have a vibrant learning experience in your classroom. You demonstrate student success. So that's that assessment piece. Then you move to district measures, defining local school district success broadly, designing an interactive accountability system, and then we move to demonstrating that local school district success. There is a local accountability continuum that all of this is based off of. So if you folks have your phone, you can scan that. Our printer was not working at the KDE building, so unfortunately we do not have those here with us tonight. But again, you'll get them in an email. Again, so the continuum, you can't see it here. Essentially, it's each of these measures in more detail. Since we don't have it, we're not going to reflect on it, but you might do that on your drive home. So looking at action 1, defining success for students, we found across many districts, we had 18 in the initial L3 movement, which were those local laboratories of learning. Prototyping this, developing a portrait of a learner is your #1 strategy for defining what student success is, beyond just academics. Of course, that academic piece still persists, but also what do we want for our kids in terms of becoming gainfully employed and being good humans? So we asked that question, what do we want our students to know? What do we want them to be able to do? And what do we want them to be like? And you ask that question of a broad, inclusive coalition of your community. So you get multiple perspectives. And from that, you build a portrait of a learner. So Kentucky does have a model portrait of a learner. We went through the process of asking stakeholders that exact question and building these competencies. There's 6 competencies: engaged citizen, critical thinker, effective communicator, empowered learner, creative contributor, and productive collaborator. You'll find that many of those elements persist in local portraits of a learner. There are some that are quite different and unique, but most of them bring these up as core competencies.
And these are things that you're going to see your businesses that are, and of course, if you look across the room, I believe everyone has a portrait of a learner, but again, businesses are looking more, can kids and students communicate? Can they collaborate? Can they persist? Are they creative? Are they contributors? There's so many things that our workforce is looking for. Also, there are colleges. Even our colleges have a graduate profile now that's very similar.
Yeah. So the idea, of course, is that we're building good humans, right? That have the soft skills to be successful in life. And one thing I do want to point out, this does not forego academic success. Literacy and numeracy are critical and foundational. And the way that you build these competencies is through rigorous academic work. So I have to bring that up. That's a common misconception that, oh, we only care about the soft skills. Certainly that will allow them to be good humans, but we want that academic.
That falls into our power.
Yes.
That falls into.
Certainly. And one thing I will say, though we have a model portrait, no single school district has adopted the Kentucky Board portrait. Instead, we've had 150 plus districts go out to their communities and ask that question, what do we value? What do we want for our kids? And they have made their own individual portraits that reflect those values of their community. So action 2 is designing vibrant learning experiences for students. And in the guide, which we don't have here with us, there are key strategies under each action. One of the key strategies is developing performance outcomes and indicators for each portrait competency. This is what that looks like. So essentially, you'll take your portrait competency, let's say engaged citizen here, and you'll define, okay, if we have our students graduate in 12th grade and we're saying that they are an engaged citizen, here's a description of what that would mean.
So an example demonstrates empathy and respect for diversity, culture, and opinions of others through responsible actions. And then there are more. And what you'll see is we also define mastery at the different grade bands. So if we're saying our child is an engaged citizen at grade level 2, they're expressing a point of view on an event, issue, or phenomenon that's relevant to their community. And there are other aspects there too. So the idea is over time, students reflect on these experiences, they demonstrate these skills. So by the time that they actually walk across that graduation stage, you can say, I know I'm an engaged citizen. Here's how I've demonstrated that through 12 years of my school experience. I also want to highlight the definition of vibrant learning experiences. So the tagline is learning that matters to students. And the actual definition, in partnership with families and communities, students are agents of their own learning, engaged in relevant, authentic, and joyful learning opportunities. Vibrant learning honors students' cultural wealth, gifts, and interests. Vibrant learning culminates in the application of knowledge and skills demonstrated through personalized products. The argument that we're making is that every single student deserves that type of experience in their classrooms every single day. I want to emphasize, we mean every single student, every child that we are beholden to giving a good education deserves that type of experience. I also want to say the whole idea of local accountability is transforming the student experience. That what they experience in the classroom is a rich, vibrant experience that makes them want to come to school and helps them build those skills that aren't just employability skills, but are also academic skills. A study I point to is student engagement and enjoyment of school. You know that after 3rd grade, student engagement and enjoyment of school starts to crater. Do you know when it comes back up after 3rd grade? 12th grade.
High school.
Yeah, so from 3rd grade onwards, we're on a downward slope until they see light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
We're trying to solve for that problem. That should not be the case in our classrooms. And vibrant learning is a strategy that we're using. We were going to do something really fun and you were going to defend a competency, but we do not have the time. So action 3 is demonstrating student success. We do that through performance assessments. Many of our districts are currently developing a system of performance assessments. Several of our districts have been doing performance assessments for almost a decade now. Shelby County really is a leader requiring capstone defenses of every single student. And truly, they mean every single student. They're English language learners, present in their home language. Students use assistive technology if they need it. So we really do mean capturing every single student in the frame of this work. So performance assessments, just to give a very quick overview, it's things like an exhibition of learning. So you think of the typical science fair with the 3-ply boards, that, but a much more significant structure around the types of questions folks ask, what students are expected to do. We have defenses of learning, which are really summative experiences where students build a portfolio and share that work. We have student-led conferences, so really shifting the onus on the student to talk about their learning and what they've grown. And these are just a very small selection of what a performance assessment is.
We see students that are doing defenses of learning at the senior level that are getting offered internships and jobs from their defensive learning giving at their senior level. So, talk about relevant. Essentially, we've got business folks that are coming in, and again, Shelby County is really good about this with their defensive learning. Business leaders come in and observe kids with a rubric to say, okay, what is this defensive learning? What recommendations do we have? And they see what's going on, and all of a sudden the kid gets on the job. I mean, all of a sudden you're like, that's right.
I actually saw that happen in Brown County this past spring. A student, she was an incredible human being, really a spectacular person, but she got offered a job at a local law firm at that defensive learning at her capstone. So it truly is a really effective measure of, is that student being successful and how, and they tell that story. So we're moving into the district level moves now, and action 4 is defining success for the local school district. And of course, districts already have measures of success. They have strategic plans. improvement processes. The thing that we really bring up in local accountability is inclusive design of those priorities. So when we talk about inclusive design, we really mean inclusive membership. And there's multiple ways to do that, inviting folks, specifically going out to different community events and asking folks to apply. Community mapping is a cornerstone of the local accountability process, finding out who the different elements of your community are and how can you reach out to them. That was incredibly quick, but you get the idea. You need everyone at the table. And sometimes you need to bring the table to them to really get the full picture. Action 5 is designing an interactive local accountability system. So aligning your indicators to a shared vision and building a process for community members to interact with the measures of success with your, quarterly reporting, whatever it is, building a system where folks really get to give feedback on what you've done. In that particular lane, we've had districts really build pretty impressive dashboards. And again, I mentioned this, a dashboard absent dialogue is not revelatory, right? The thing that matters is that these dashboards exist inside of systems that invite discussion, collaboration, and connection. Let's see, how much time do we have left? We have a solid 5 minutes. Again, this will be sent to you. I would invite you not only to look at Shelby County's dashboard, it's narrative first. So it's less about those metrics and numbers and more about here are the stories of our kids that have been really successful. Fleming County, they just released a new dashboard in the past 2 months, I think. Fleming County was the exact opposite before. It was more numbers than you could possibly comprehend at a glance. They've actually done a 180, and now it is very story focused about individual students and the success that they've built in Fleming County schools. And that's to say the data is still there. There's still a very sophisticated system of looking at assessment data on each of these dashboards, but they lead first with who we are as Fleming County, who our students are as individuals, and how we are making them successful.
Some others include Rockcastle, who wasn't part of the L3, but they have an ebook that has all the data that their community asks for. You also have Kenton County that has an local accountability model that has, I think they even include things like teacher certifications and things of that nature, how many are qualified to teach other courses. You have Shelby, Fleming, Greenon, Logan, thank you. And there's one more on this.
I must listen to.
Alan's about ready to publish.
Yes,
That's
Alan's
Alan's right there. Superintendent Hamby, he can be a picky man. He needs to get it just right.
Oh goodness, I've lost where I was. Essentially, these dashboards exist, this work exists. I would invite you to go look at it and really see how they're telling the story of their success. I did want to mention one thing. So we mentioned those numbers and broader metrics of success. A lot of this work prior to local accountability work has been focused on just looking at more data and figuring out where we're successful. The place where I think local accountability really changes is not only that it's focused on community and community input and uplifting community values. It's very focused on the student learning experience. That is the core piece. If you do not transform the way your kids are learning in classrooms every day, the way that they feel about being in classrooms, you've missed the mark, and you're not going to radically transform their experience and what they need. Action 6 is demonstrating local success, strategic comms. We have some examples of that. Park County has been doing a really good job of that lately. We had a whole reflection thing. I promise we have 3 hours to usually do this. You're welcome to give me a call sometime. Thank you for your time.
I will say.
Oh, I have a session tomorrow. It's this, but with more time. Yeah.
This is just a teaser to get you into his session tomorrow. I will also say, a great idea from Rob and wanting, some equitable access to this information. We have just concluded as of December 1st, finished at CKEC in Lexington, went to all 8 co-ops, had tremendous turnout.
Over 600.
Capacity at almost each and every one. And so because of that demand, we are turning people away. We will be having a virtual session that is open to anyone. So we'll make sure you have that information. Your teachers can join, you can join. I mean, your community members can join. Anyone who wants to join, we'll get the more fleshed out version of this. And we apologize. I told Rob we got 45, we got 30. I'm reminded why we moved these to 2 hours. David, I remember that conversation we had. So I do want to thank Rob for coming all this way from Greenup County. And I do honestly encourage you to join his session tomorrow. The interaction and conversation also helps inform us. So thank you for that. Before we talk about adjournment, do want to put emphasis on the pages over here. As we get up to leave, I know I'm going to leave the door open a little bit on where we land here, but grab 3 sticky notes. Don't put your name on it. Nothing has to identify you, but grab 3 and place them. No cheating. Don't put them all on the same one. But do spread those out to your top 3 areas you'd like us to prioritize this year. What we'll do is we will do a quick count of that, and Jody will be sure to highlight that big and loud on our follow-up email. And from there, we can start having conversations about how we might provide more information to you and how you can provide information to us on these topics. So our next convening, as we mentioned, I have to correct myself, it's 3 times a year because yes, we get together with KSBA 3 times a year. That will be at the Galt House in Louisville in February, also from 5 to 7. Brenna, do you have anything to add about the community? Always a good.
Yes. Can tell you the dates. I should know them off the top of my head. I'm gonna say
20th through the 22nd.
20th, the 22nd. Yeah.
Just fingers crossed for weather probably at that point. So we cannot wait to be with you then, and we will take some of this work in between where we land on priorities and help us form a richer discussion around some of those in February.
Of course, you'll not be there.
It'll be a great way for us to get information back to you through our associate commissioner. All right, do we need to do a motion to adjourn? Okay. Anyone with a motion to adjourn? A second? Joanne? All right. If you have questions, stick around. Please do. I know we were rushed there at the end, but we're happy to answer. Please do not leave though, without placing 3 stickies on a topic. Thank you all so much.